Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to Nondual Therapy. In this video, I'm going to be talking about cannabis, my relationship with cannabis, and a few experiences that I've had, 4 or 5 days ago on cannabis. Now, over the last 10 years, I would say cannabis has kind of become this psychedelic on its own for myself. When I first started using it, back in my 20s, my early 20s, it would just be to have a good time, relax, chill, watch movies, stuff like that. And then over time, it became like I couldn't smoke it around people because I would just kind of internalize everything and I'd go into myself, even though I didn't realize that that's what was happening. But I just couldn't interact with people. It would just make me look inward, and I didn't want to do that. So I kind of just cut it out. Now, I've only done cannabis maybe 10 times at most in the last 10 years, which isn't much at all. The last 5 times in particular, I would say, have been monumental, life-changing experiences. And majority of those I was not ready for. I was not expecting it. I was not looking for it. It just kind of happened, and every time it makes me want to stay away from the medicine. But I've been thinking, since I've had these large experiences, it's how could I incorporate that into my own practice and work with people? But for a long time, I was scared to do cannabis because I would always have these just crazy experiences. I was even more scared to do it than 5-MeO DMT, if that makes any sense. Recently on the Entheogenic Evolution podcast, Martin had on Daniel McQueen, and he wrote this book, Psychedelic Cannabis. Yeah. The therapeutic methods for unique blends and treat trauma and transform consciousness. So I was like, wow, that sounds exactly what I've been looking for. So I picked it up, I read it, and it's pretty good for what it is. It's this guy he has his own practice working with cannabis from Colorado, and he served thousands of people, and these people are having crazy wild experiences. Only it's in a therapeutic session, so it's contained and it's orchestrated by the individual running it. So it's a lot more structured than what my large experiences were like. And since I've been on the path, working in cemetery, just taking the time to go inward, I haven't really explored cannabis in that way. So I decided to go for it. I found a blend that I liked, and I did it. I smoked half a joint, maybe a little less than half a joint, my first round, and this was on day 1. This is a 2-day thing. I wasn't planning on doing it 2 days, but it just, at the end of the first day, it just felt like, okay, I need to do it one more time. And so I did my first round. I laid down, put on some music, and I take my cannabis, and what's nice is I have time to because I smoke it outside because I don't want to stink up the house. So I smoke it outside, and I have time to come in, turn on my music, get my little place. My place is pretty set up, but I have time to just get ready in a sense. Whereas 5-MeO, it's all I need to do is try and put the pipe down in time. But here it's I have time to relax into it. But when I lay it down, within seconds my hands are coming up and I'm doing this again. And it's just happening, it's flowing, and it's like that for a few minutes. And then from there, it was kind of I was building this laser pointer, or I was realizing that I have access to this laser pointer that's it's so laser focused. I can zoom in on absolutely anything. And I would notice everything in my field of awareness, which is everything that I have access to with my 5 senses. I create my world around me, and everything became a point instead of this 3D physical reality. Everything became a point, and in that point I could focus on a single point within my field of awareness, and I could take my laser beam focus and I could zoom in, and I can zoom in literally forever. But at some point I stop and I take a look around, and every point creates every other point Like it's like I zoom into a point and then I take a look around, and everything that's around that point is like, it kind of corresponds to the shape of how it's structured, which I would call another dimension. And then by that being another dimension, it creates all these other dimensions that are around it. And all these other dimensions, I could zoom into those dimensions, and those create infinite dimensions. So it's just like this infinite dimension. I could just go on and search and look and explore forever. It just goes on. And so this would happen. I would take my laser pointer and I would zoom in, and then but then I would get stuck on this story. My mind would create a story out of it. And I'd go down the little story, and at the end of every single story, it's infinity. And that's at the very tip of the focus. It's right at the very end of it. So I go into it, and then I'm shot back, and I'm left in this room where I did my medicine, and I'm staring up at the ceiling, and this would happen a few times. So then when I'm in there, I was like, okay, I want to go. I'm trying to discover if there's something beyond it. Like I'm creating the layers of reality, and I'm trying to understand how the structure works. So there's a human being, infinite intelligence is just being transmuted, and it's coming out of the human being. So I want to know, well, what's beyond that? So I'm trying to understand these like levels or layers. And every time I would get to infinity, it hadn't really sunk in yet that that's infinity. So I'd go into it, and it's like literally infinite pure potential where anything and everything exists. It's infinite forever and always. It's just there. And I would go through all these like landscapes and stories and just whatever, and then finally I would give up. And then I'd be like shot back, and then I'm here again. I'm in this room. So every infinity loop has to come back to where it started, or else it's not infinity. If it doesn't come back to where it starts, then there's something more to explore, and it's not infinity. But infinity is the end all be all. It's everything. So I find after like 10 times of this, trying to like break through beyond infinity, it was like starting to sink in. It's like, okay, this is infinity again and 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 again. But every time I would come back, I didn't realize I was creating this picture. So I was creating this black and white picture. Every time I'd go down a point within my field of awareness, every time I would like accept it as infinity, and it would like be turned on, like it would be switched on. It'd become awake, where it wasn't awake before, because it was living in duality. It was living in searching. It was living in, trying to make something of it, trying to understand it, trying to discover something that's already there. But finally I accept it, and then it turns on. And so every time it would turn on, it was creating this picture, because I would come back and I'd go down that one, and then it would light up, it would turn on, and I'd go down that one, and every time I turn on, it's like little like points were like creating this yin yang symbol. And I didn't need to create it to understand it, but it was like once I clued in that the bigger picture was infinity, it's like, okay, and then it's like really sunk in since then. So trying to explain this, like zooming into every point. I can see like every point is connected to every other point, and when I go into those points, I can see how it makes up my life, my experience, my reality. And I saw like trying to manifest things, like I have a power to put out a thought, or to control my reality in some form. There is power granted to the individual. And I saw it, and it looked so fantastic. It was like a fire or explosion, and it looked so big, but then the picture zoomed out, and then it was like the power is so minuscule in comparison to allowing reality to flow through the body, to have that infinite love that infinity just transferred through the person and have that experience. That the power to like create and trying to micromanage your life is just, it's incomparable. It's just like, it's like a waste of time if you're comparing the two. It's no question. It doesn't even deserve to be in the same like conversation, essentially. Like that's how much it was shown to me. The magnitude of like the difference in importance, I guess. I don't know. It's not really importance. It doesn't matter what you do, but it's just seems better on all accounts. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, so after that, I was like, I noticed in these like longer sessions, it was like 3-4 hours. In these longer sessions, I noticed that I'm like breaking symmetry more. Whereas like 5-MeO was just like symmetrical the whole time. And then I can tell when I break symmetry, it's over. But here it's like I break symmetry, I'm a little nervous to face something, and I can tell. And I would always be so hard on myself before. Like if I broke symmetry, it's like, no, bring it back. But it's like I can break it and it's like, it's fine. I just go back to it and it's no big deal. It's no big deal. Yeah, no big deal. So that ended. That's like, there's probably some other stuff in there, but let's just say it ended. And I felt like, man, I should do that one more time. Like that was like, there's still like lingering things I didn't quite fully get. And so the next day, sure enough, it worked out that I had enough time. Everything just synced up and I had the time to do it. No, don't have to worry about the kids or anything for 4 hours. So I come downstairs and something that happened during the daytime is like, I couldn't remember it. Like the nighttime, I could kind of like think about it and I'm like kind of like working through little things, like checking off like, okay, that makes sense. That explains that. But then it's kind of fading away like a dream. And then I did it the second night and I'm just like thrown back into it. There's like all the spheres and I have this like laser pointer focus that I could just zoom in. And something that became very obvious on the second round is that I could zoom in and as long as I zoom into, as long as I don't stop zooming in, I'll reach infinity and that infinity is always looking back at me. So like if I look anywhere, I see a 3-dimensional structure. I'm in my room, there's a light there, I'm staring at a camera, there's walls around me, there's a floor. But it's like an illusion in a sense that if I look beyond what it is, if I zoom in like to like a microscopic level, it's infinity staring back no matter where I look, no matter what I experience, it's staring back at me. So the picture's becoming more and more clear the second time around, and there's this line that's being kind of like becoming more obvious, where it's like I can look straight ahead and there's a dot, and that dot, if I look at it, it's infinity. But then over the time of like going into infinity and coming back and going into it and coming back, going into it, I must have had like, I would say like going into infinity and then coming back, that counts as an ego death, right? It's like you're giving up your complete self. There's no individuality there. It's all infinity. And coming back, if that counts as a ego death, I must have had like well over 100 ego deaths between these two sessions. Because it was just infinity, come back, infinity, come back, infinity, come back. It just over and over and over again. And the second time that I did it, it was a bit easier to go through. But what seems to be happening is it's leveling off, where it's like it is just infinity. It's like there won't be this coming back and going eventually. So as I'm like going and coming back, there's like the reality that I see, like I can zoom in on the point, but then there's this line that's being, like I can see the line, and the line is down the center of my body, but I'm seeing it outward instead of inward, even though it's all the same thing, but I'm creating this like line, and I really understood like why symmetry is so important in this work. It's like you stare at the line because that line is the center and that line is infinity. And that's where it's the easiest to stare at infinity. And then when you're staring at infinity, you have the ability to monitor your body when the ego is operating in asymmetry. So it would be really obvious when I first started, where I'd break symmetry and I would like, no, I don't want to look, please, no. And I would do that. So it's like super obvious. But now when I'm doing it, I can feel like a little tension in my thigh, like a little knot, or like a little twitch, or like just like, it's so like minute. And then I take my laser focus that I've worked on in the last, like, I guess my whole psychedelic journey here, but just like what I've discovered the session before, I take that focus and it's like, say it's over there, and I just like beam it into it, and then I'm in that like dot. And then I go through the dot, and I have to go through it. It's like I can't just like turn it off or whatever. It's like that's my pain. My pain is in that dot, and I'm storing it in that dot. If it's up there, it's like stored right there. So I go in it, and I have to go all the way through the end until the ego gives up, and then it's infinity. And there's like faced with pure potential, not sure what's going to happen. I might die. I might never come back. Everything might end. I don't know. But I accept it, and then it's just like, poof, I'm back in my room. It's like that fucking over and over and over again. So then I realized, like, going down these little paths, those dots are actually chakras. And there are an infinite number of chakras. Either there is an infinite number of them, or there is zero of them. It's the same thing. I hear spiritual teachers say there's no chakras. There's none. And then I hear, yes, I have them. They're all open. So it's like both answers are true. And that's another thing that came up, is like, I am here, there, nowhere, and everywhere. That was just like this like revolving door. It's like, I'm here, there, nowhere, and everywhere. I'm here, there, nowhere, everywhere. I'm here, there, nowhere, everywhere. It's like everywhere I looked, it's like, oh, I'm here, I'm there, I'm nowhere, I'm everywhere. And really beating that drum over and over again. Yeah, it's like all these dualities that kind of crumble. They kind of crumble away, and then they merge, and then there's like only one answer. But that answer is a duality if you like try to think about it from the egoic perspective, because it just doesn't make sense. But when you understand it, it's like, oh yeah, obviously I'm here, there, nowhere, and everywhere. It's just like, so in between those dots, it's empty space. It's infinite empty space. There's nothing there. It's like, there's no empty space. It's just nothing. There's like, don't have access to it. It's just nothing. It's just, if you go into it, it's like you don't come back. It's nothing. There's just nothing there. But then it's like simultaneously, it's everything that's happening. So the way I saw it, it was like a dot, and then there'd be like a blank empty space. Then there'd be like a dot, and then there'd be a blank empty space. And each one of those dots makes up my chakras, which makes up my perception of reality. So I'm going down each individual dot and turning those on. And then when I turn them on, it's like it becomes like a field of awareness. And the field of awareness lights up. And I don't know what it's like after that, like when they're all open and on all the time. Because like this, like zooming in, I could just zoom in. And even the next day after the second session, man, I could just like zoom in like that. It didn't go away. I could zoom in, and I could really focus and just like zoom in. Like I woke up with a kink in my neck. So I was like body scanning it, and then, I just like take my focus, my laser focus, and I just focus all my attention on my neck. And, I was like twitching and coughing. And then by the end of the day, I was telling my wife about this. And then she asked me, so does it hurt? I was like, you know what? It doesn't actually. So I can just take my focus and just like go anywhere. So my inversion point seems to be changing. Where it's like the outside world and the inside world seems to start like here. Like I'm looking outward at it, and I could hear things from outside, and I put food in my mouth to taste it, and I feel things on the edge of my body. But that like inversion point where it's like the outside and inside meet seems to be like breaking away. And it's at the chakras now. Like my field of awareness is those dots. Yeah, so what happens when they're all on? I don't know, but there's still some that are not on. I can tell, because like I'm not that different from what I was. It's just I'm aware of these points now, and I could like zoom into them, and it's relatively easy. Yeah, so sorry if this is like all over the place. I'm just trying to spew out as much as I can. So I noticed that like when a kid is born, they have relatively like a perfect system. You know, they couldn't have stuff passed on at birth, but for the most part, like they're as healthy as they're going to be. And then when they start developing their ego between 1 and 2, they start being rejected by their reality, their environment. They start being molded by the reality instead of them being in power. And they also mirror, you know, their parents and teachers and just people that they look up to. They mirror that behavior. So growing up in an environment where you have like your teachers aren't awake or they're not aware, and your parents aren't awake or they're not aware, then they start to mimic these unhealthy, unnatural, just closed-minded behaviors. They start to create like a block, whereas there was like a free flowing of energy that was before. And the free flowing energy, it just like flows through them. It just flows through the center of the body. It just in and out, and they're just moved by the universe. But when they start creating blocks, the energy can no longer flow freely through the body. And not only does it stop flowing through the body, the ego or the person develops the ability to like look through those knots. So those knots become a center of the personality. So it's like if I was, if I was wronged 30 years ago, I'm holding on to that. It's like, well, I'm still that wounded little kid. So I'm going to take that and use that as my personality or the way. I'm going to use that as a way to like get what I want out of life, even though there's such a better way to do it. Although I don't know about it because I've always lived my life this way through this pain. So it creates this block, and that block, it kind of like spirals. That's the way I saw it. It spirals, and if it's not tended to, it spirals tighter and tighter and tighter and bigger and bigger and tighter, and it keeps getting bigger. And then if it's not dealt with, it starts to manifest the symptoms as like in the body, wherever it's stored. Wherever it's stored in the body, it starts to manifest the symptoms. So what I saw is that I could see the point, the chakra, whatever you call it, I could see it, go into it. But as I'm going through it, it's unspiraling. So it's getting looser. It's not as wound up. It's not as tight. The duration of it is getting shorter, and it's like it's like a towel that's like been like tightened so much, you're just like unloosening it until it's like nice and flat. And then when it's nice and flat, you can just like see infinity, and infinity's like coming out through it the other way, and it's just like it lights up. So yeah, that was kind of where I left off with my last session. I was seeing them like, and I could see a bunch of them, and they're like getting like, and they were like, I don't know. It was like wanting to be straight, but I was like, I felt the fear a little bit, and I didn't know like what would happen if I just like did that. What would happen? And that, I'm assuming that's like they're all on, they're all open, and they're all transmitting infinite love through the field of awareness. This turned into be a long video, but hopefully there is something here for you to think about at least. Thank you for watching. If you could, please give this video a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Did I say that? I don't know. Anyway, take care, everyone. Bye.